And most importantly, it was inefficient and ineffective and cost all of our companies money. However, it's just the way it was always done.
Welcome to the show. I'm Porter Hygus, and today we're going to be pulling back the curtain on the strategy, execution, and future of one of the ECIA's initiatives. Today, I'm joined by two of the centers of this initiative, Alan Ahern of Crowley Associates, a manufacturer's rep, and Peter Hygus of Metal. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
So, Alan, let's go back to the beginning of all of this. Where did this come from? What happened that made you realize that this initiative was important to the industry, and what did you do about it?
Well, in 2018, the ECIA formally launched the proof of concept initiative for the automated data exchange. In 2019, it could continue, progress to that point where the GIPC Council of ECIA actually had reviewed the white paper that was going to be done and vetted it. And then in 2020, the actual white paper that's on ECIA's website actually was created. And that was for all three constituents, benefiting of all of them. And it's on ECA's website for reading.
Okay.
And Poe, I want to jump in on this. And I'd like to actually identify where this whole idea kind of began, right? And it's a really great, I think it's a great story. So Alan and I have been friends for a long time. We met a long time ago, on a plane, randomly sat next to each other. And from that moment, we were working together to drive efficiencies within his business itself, right? Taking him from, on-prem to cloud, cloud to app to almost nothing on-prem, and just kind of making it so that every part of his business, whether it be, surrounding the financial aspect to the CRM aspect to the data workflow aspect, trying to streamline that whole process. And so anyway, the one day he came to me, we were actually just walking and talking about something during lunch. And he goes, I got this problem, and I'm wondering whether or not we can solve it. Right. And so he explains to me, he goes, today, we as representatives do a large lift of communicating sales between distributors, manufacturers, and us as the reps. And we actually have to every day, for every opportunity, for every quote, for every moment in time, have to keep our distributors and manufacturers up to date on what it is that we're doing. And I'm like, well, so how do you do that today? And he's like, well, today we email all of that information back and forth between each entity. And that happens not only when we find new opportunities, from customers that are working with our distributors, but as those opportunities revolve and grow and the life cycle of them, we have to then go and update them, and we have to update multiple people at these different locations. He said, this seems silly. To me, it was like having like an email system, but without like the send button, right? I'm like, so you literally write these things out and essentially send them in mail so that hopefully somebody then can process them. And he's like, absolutely. And he said, I want to have the ability to just take the data that's in my CRM and be able to magically make it appear into the distributors and manufacturers. And he said, can we do that? And that's really where this whole thing evolved. And I go, this just makes a lot of sense because it would eliminate all of that manual process, right? And so that's kind of where this whole thing began. And that's where we have come today to be able to, say, hey, yeah, we have done that, and that's exciting.
If you remember, it was at a very critical time because as I explained to you, the number of duplicate entries, both on the manufacturer's rep side, the distributors, and the manufacturers. I explained to you, I had one of our best salespeople, inside person, actually leave the company because they found it to be so administratively burdened, and they weren't actually doing what they were hired for. They were more data entry versus inside sales, and that was not what they wanted.
Yeah.
And it was a great loss. And it may have been right around that time where I said, hey, this is my problem.
Yeah.
Usually that's usually how that works.
Well, and not only that, you were saying that you're paying these people as salespeople, top dollar salespeople, and they were just data entry people, right? And so those are two different skills that require different things, and to have people in your organization not leverage their own skills to drive business, it just made sense, right?
So
The rep,
yeah, go ahead.
within the rep councils that ECA is formed, we're the manufacturers, independent manufacturers rep council. This is where this was originally taken. With the preface that, this issue is not only a Crowley issue, but it is all manufacturers rep issues.
Yeah.
So you saw this issue. You had employees leaving because they were overworked. You had manufacturers that were, say, unhappy with the amount of information that they were able to, forecast sales off of and actually make educated business decisions. So you see this issue, then you go to the ECIA. Why did you go to the ECIA? What was their role? Why are they impactful to this organization?
Well, ECA serves a very important role in this whole electronic component industry. One of their number one goals is to improve or help improve the efficiencies of business operations, driving more growth, profitability, et cetera. So ECA creates a lot of standards which the industry is adopted. So it made sense that ECA is one of the leading industry associates, that they would be able to communicate with the distributors, manufacturers, and the reps, and also go down through this validation process that this initiative is as important as I thought it was.
And I'll just jump in on it just to add, so what we needed to do, Porter, is kind of let them know how this whole thing was going to work, right? So we created this white paper that explained from start to finish, what were the I would call it, what are the framework that we had to work within to ensure that it could benefit everybody, that it was cost effective for everybody, what were the outcome for everybody, right? And so that white paper is out on the ECIA's website, and they have an entire page dedicated to the data exchange initiative. And really it came down to like 3 or 4 main goals, right? The one of them was, we didn't want to have anybody, the reps, manufacturers, or distributors, have to change or utilize a specific CRM, right? So whatever they were using today, great. Like, how do we make that happen? 2, we didn't want to have it to be any sort of like plugins or installables or anything. They had to be able to just use what they had. And then third, the process that they went through, it really shouldn't change their process. Today, their process is enter data here. Okay, well, they enter data here. That's the one process that we were trying to move, but they just core had to, enter the data in here, and somehow magically it was going to end up in their manufacturers or distributors CRM, right? And so those were kind of the boundaries of it. And then, we had to talk about the security of it, right? So it's, it needed to be, completely encrypted. The reps also didn't want, and no one really wants, all of their data in the cloud. So it couldn't be like a data warehouse of sorts. So that's another, component of it. And I think that's.
Yeah, there was, you explained that well. There was in the white paper, you'll find there's 6 pillars that were clearly identified in the white paper. And you just mentioned a lot of them. No data storage, no vendor lock-in. And from those 6 pillars, that was all the voice of customer, voice of distributor, voice of manufacturer. And if they're listening with them and proposing this initiative, they had questions, they had their, in some cases, concerns, and that is what all built up the framework that delivered to the white paper, was listening to the people who would be, wanting to implement this and what was important to them.
And I'll go back to your original question. why bring it to the ECIA? Well, the ECIA has a number of capabilities, functions, features that they offer to their members, and they have a lot of members. And so being able to offer this as another, capability that the ECIA sponsored and can promote, would gain better adoption. And one of the things that we were really kind of worried about was this idea of splintering, right? So the ECIA is all about setting standards and driving those standards, just like the NITA form back in the day, right? And so we needed to be able to kind of set a standard that they could rely on, that provided this for their entire ecosystem and have everybody get behind. So
Yeah, you made great points on that. One of the things that I always joke around about is that our industry is a high-tech industry. The high-tech industry, exchanging lives, it's moving in the speed of light, et cetera. And yet our infrastructure of which we have is archaic. We have, example, distributor has a request, or one of our sales engineers actually has an opportunity to want to share with the manufacturer. They enter it in the system. Our person is flagged and it came in. We go in a manufacturer system. We enter it again. In some cases, there's a response. Someone on that end responds to us. We go back to our salespeople, ask them. They give us the answer. So the duplications and triplications as you go down through did two things. It took time and energy away from our company. It made the manufacturers not have the real-time funnel dashboards they were looking for. And most importantly, it was inefficient and ineffective and cost all of our companies money. However, it's just the way it was always done. So people accepted that as the norm. AKA, I didn't. And that's why I brought it to the rep council for the initiative to say, this is important enough. We're going to modernize the way that our electronic industry works. We shouldn't be operating this way. We know the technology exists. We know that we can do it. So let's make it happen. And in order to really do that, ECIA was a great foundation. That white paper that they supported, it was initially they launched, and Peter executed on that. The whole purpose was to actually remove the mystery. Why is it that we're doing what we're doing when it doesn't make any sense? How can I? So the remove the mystery was the important part. And I think logically, I don't think anyone would argue that if they can take out wasted time, that equals money. And no one right now, and especially in the environment we're in today, has any more gross profit margins that they want to shrink.
And I would say it just really aligned with their mission statement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the ECI's mission is be efficient, drive revenue, and support their members, right?
Yep,
And that's really that's why we went there.
So it sounds like you went to the ECIA because they were able to touch every part of the market. They were involved with reps and manufacturers and distributors. And that allowed you to create kind of this one central hub that allows everyone to connect information, eliminate all these errors and duplicate entries and all this wasted time. I would love to kind of break it down into, starting from the reps and ending in the distributors. What is the problem that metal actually solves through the ECIA for each individual industry? So you have the reps. Alan, what was the problem that you saw immediately that was then solved by using metal to connect yourself with your partner companies?
Well, there's one part of the proof of concept that was a deliverable of metal to ECA
Back in the day.
back in the day was the white paper, and then a proof of concept, which was prove that it can work. So there was one manufacturer that stepped up first. We had 7 reps, 7 disparate CRM systems, and really what the manufacturer wanted was all the things that would be natural, real-time funnel, be able to forecast properly, and they wanted a lot of information, and we were willing to give it to them. It's just the rate and speed of which that they needed it was created a singular inside person specific for that manufacturer in order to give them what they wanted. And I don't think that was their intent. It just happened through the inefficiencies of everything. That was how the problem was solved. We just threw a person at a problem, And that is not how it's done. It should not be done how it's done.
And I'll throw this out there too. One of the, specifically, how does, there's so many points of how this benefits the reps. But, one of the ones that kind of the unknown or unseen, because, as we've worked in the industry, we really do recognize that, a lot of times the manufacturers don't know how the reps function and process stuff, and they don't know how the distributors do stuff. And there's just these three buckets that really, they work together via email, or they used to. And as such, because they had different processes and they didn't know each other's, that made a barrier to entry pretty hard. So one of the things that metal allows this, or this data exchange allows them to do, is there's this intellectual property on the product line managers or inside salespeople, right? So when they enter data into Crowley's system, then they have to go over to the manufacturers and enter data there. And those systems are completely different, right? Completely different. Could be CRMX and CRMY. And so those product line managers, they know, here are all the things that, Sager needs, or, our previous manufacturer, Invent or whoever. And so because they know exactly what needs to happen, they can do it fairly effectively. But as Alan said, when you're doing just data entry and you're doing this, multiple duplicate data entry, and you lose people, all of a sudden you lose that intellectual property about how that company does business and how they do their process. And so by automating that, sometimes even if someone leaves, bringing someone else on is very effective and efficient, because they only have to learn your system, and all the processes and all the intellectual property that they needed to know for how to enter the data in, and what they were expecting, and when they were expecting it, that all goes away, because they only now needed to learn their own system. And it just, from a time sensitive standpoint, from a scalability perspective, from an onboarding perspective of new employees, it just changes, how companies can do business. So I think that was a big one.
Yeah, let me pick up on one key point you made on the manufacturer side. The manufacturers, as you know already, they have their own systems, and they're getting what they want because we're going into their systems and we're doing the updates. So for them, they don't necessarily recognize what happens at our side. Now, we generate the opportunity on our end, and as fast as humanly possible, we go and we communicate it back to them, into their system. That is what they see. They don't recognize on the other end, we have 19 sales engineers, we have 19 people pumping in opportunities. And as they're pumping them in, the manufacturer, we're going to get that data to them as fast as possible. But I think I explained it to you earlier, what the problem was, is getting that information to them as fast as we could, so they could use it as effectively as we could. And if we actually had a sales engineer on the road, even if it was talking on their phone, updating their opportunity, the manufacturer would get that real time. That was the goal. And at the time, we were thinking that was going to be a really, can this be done? And it's been proven that it did. And now what we're hoping through, this type of socialization and the continued efforts within ECIA and their joint councils, that this is going to take it to the next step, because people know that it can be done.
And just to add to that, so we've done some metrics, on one particular manufacturer with their 8 reps that they have on that are using metal today. And just to kind of do a little analysis of what they would have needed to do today if they weren't using metal, here's a great example. 1,600 updates for new opportunities were created in 1 week. 1,600. So all of a sudden, imagine the amount of time that it takes. And it takes, let's just say, roughly, I don't know, 10 minutes, right? Get in, do your updates, make sure that you put in the comments, whatever it might be. But take that and multiply that times 1,600. That's what those companies would have had to do. And many companies are still doing it, because not everybody's a metal, not everybody uses it. But that efficiency and real-time data and reduction of actual manual labor is is just mind-boggling to
Yeah.
me, right? I mean, like that's amazing.
And those are sales reps that you hired to sell that are then going in and doing data entry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
In short
So
answer, right? I mean, so yeah, the inside sales rep, tell me, I mean, you're, to me, the inside sales reps' job is to support the outside sales reps to find new opportunities, to generate new leads, to inform or get the information to the outside people with the, before they need it. And instead, they are just simply reacting to the information that they're receiving and entering the data in just so that the manufacturers and distributors can see the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So that they, yeah, that's, go ahead.
Well, and a pain point that I have as a business owner is knowing that they're working on Saturdays, seeing them live on their computers and bringing from Teams, and it's 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. During the day, they're doing their jobs that they've been hired to do, which is this reference, is help our sales engineers close the deals. And all the rest of the things that they're doing is impacting their quality of life. And that, for me, hurts. And that is, again, a good reason, why I look at things from a, very practical standpoint is I don't want them working on weekends. I don't want them working at night. This is not something they should be doing. And I know that there's a solution for it. It is very frustrating for me to have this continue, but until we have some more mass adoptions of this, and maybe it's through awareness, like what we're talking about right now. Unfortunately, I think we'll be in the same boat.
Yeah, and I, with that whole idea, and we've done some marketing around this. The whole idea of this mental health,
Yeah.
and being healthy, having a good work-life balance is super important. And we started actually working with a company called Promly, which is is a mental health, organization, nonprofit. Again, a friend of mine from forever. And and trying to get it so that, some of the proceeds that people use in metal will go, to problems. So
Excellent.
it's kind of a neat initiative that we're trying to do, again, just to gain, to provide a healthy environment, a healthy work life. So it's
Great.
So it sounds like from the rep's perspective, you were able to go to the ECIA and show them this rock and a hard place situation where you wanted better quality of life and happier employees. Meanwhile, you also wanted to be a more productive company, showing that you were actually providing value to your manufacturers. That obviously is a two birds with one stone situation just for the reps, but then for the manufacturer, why do those manufacturers want that information as quickly as you can get it, and why is getting the information immediately versus maybe within a couple of days so important for those manufacturers?
Yep, so starting in the very beginning, ECA obviously needed to understand and vet this initiative to make sure that it met the needs of the three constituents that are out there. So there was a very thoughtful and careful review, and it was done through the board of directors, it was done through the councils, and I think everyone agreed that they understood what this issue is. Manufacturers, and particularly the one that we started with, had a word board where they had a real-time scalable MBO funnel that their CEO looked at every day. Where's our opportunities? What are they going to close? When are they going to close? And it was clear that our company, not necessarily because we're better than anyone else, but our company was the number one top performer as far as getting it. And it was a really easy reason for it, because that process of which it took to make that happen was so much simpler. Now, the rest of our manufacturers, we'll continue to do what we're doing because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're paid to do. That's the expectation. It's just a matter of that manufacturer got not only the real-time information, we truly had an insight person that were following up on those quotes, getting those designs. And why is it important for need for speed? The need for speed is really easy. There's a lot of competitors in our space for any manufacturer or distributor, and whoever comes in with the information last loses. That is my absolute conviction, is that if you don't react fast, you don't get it to them fast. They've already moved on and you don't know it. And you're following up on something that the train has left the station on. That's why it's so important to get that information as fast as possible.
And then
Well,
from the
let me
keep
add to
going.
that.
Sorry.
Hold on, yeah. So one of the interesting things that we have realized, and I'll make a great point, like, Panduit and Invent, who are two manufacturers that do use metal. One of the things that they had were opportunities of their own that they wanted to share with their reps and have their reps be able to follow up on. And this happens on a kind of a yearly cycle. Like sometimes they have certain initiatives that they do that they then generate a huge number of opportunities that are geared towards the rep. And what they were seeing was, they were sending these hundreds of opportunities, and it just physically wasn't possible to enter them all in, plus the information that that the reps already had themselves. And so by having this two-way, synchronization of data, they then had all of their opportunities, which literally came in from a scanner that they were out on out in their stores scanning it, came into their CRM. Their CRM automatically clicked the sync button. It sunk over to the reps, and it was there within the day, right? And that's like to have that capabilities of going literally from shelf to opportunity to someone working on it. That's why the manufacturers are so interested in doing it today.
But one last comment on the need for speed is these opportunities are being generated in the field. Are potentials for a manufacturer to expand their product offering with new products. So if an opportunity came in for a product that they didn't have, but the voice of the customer said, this is what we want, the need for the speed there is our manufacturers are made aware of it sooner, and they can start putting engineering resources where they belong. Or they can start putting more engineering resources or management resources towards opportunities because they see it's got a lot of potential. And that's where I was talking about that word that someone had, because that's what they were looking for. They were looking for opportunities they could expand and opportunities that were the most important to us. And that only happened because we were feeding that board.
So, Alan, we talked a few weeks ago, and you talked about how forecasting for manufacturers and anticipating market trends is extremely important. Um, it seems like metal, with that instant data transfer and making sure that manufacturers are always looking at real time, up to date data. It's kind of like seeing that AI is going to be the future 10 years ago and realizing well before the train has already left the station that this is the next movement, and being able to see those opportunities and those trends within the data in real time rather than a month or two later. How have you seen that kind of impact the market, especially with your manufacturers, and how are they able to make better business decisions?
Well, there's a couple of key data points in all the information that we share. One of the most important ones is the close date. That means when this opportunity is coming and it's going to close, something has to happen. We either need to make sure in advance of that close date, we have samples, we have inventories, we've collaborated with our distributor partners to make all that happen. So building up a good forecast off of an NBO funnel with that close date is extremely important because it gives the manufacturer the opportunity to strategize in advance. So, from a forecasting accuracy standpoint, that truly comes from how accurate the data you have when putting it in. And within our CRMs and everything else, we've got our mechanisms of which all that works. But, from what we experienced with Meta, quite honestly, if we wanted to update that close date, we wanted to update the first production date and all that. Again, the manufacturers were really watching that. Those are important things for them because they were thinking about it in sense of future revenue, not just how many NBOs do we have? What's the funnel value? It turns out really a lot of that can build a forecast, but it's coming down to when's it going to close, and to what level of accuracy have we provided in that information.
And so then, obviously we can see the value that this initiative through the ECIA has provided to reps and manufacturers. As far as distributors, Could you explain maybe the benefits that distributors are seeing, but also kind of that interface, how it all works? Is it still that reps need to go into multiple different CRMs and input that information, or is it one place they're putting that information into their CRM and it just magically appears in everyone else's database or CRM or whatever they're using at that time?
Well, I mean, I am really excited to say that this week, I believe it was like March 20th, that Sager Electronics has actually become on the Metal platform. And that between Sager and Crowley, we are completely connected. What does that mean? That means on the distributor standpoint, they enter information in their CRM system, which is driving a design registration. Driving a design registration, that can make their margins 10, 20, 30% greater than what it would be. As soon as they enter that in their system, it comes into ours. And there is no additional work on their end. They don't have to take a form and email it to somebody. It just comes into our system. We take it, we work with our manufacturer, and we give them the approval number, and it goes back. So what's the benefit to the distributor? Well, I certainly think manufacturers are going to benefit from this tool specifically for them because it's ease of doing business, it's speed of doing business. They got a customer waiting for a quote. We identified 28 steps prior to doing automation, and that began with them starting all the way through to the point when we got back to a quote. Now, that might sound ridiculous, but I can show you a flow diagram that'll show you exactly all of that. And it was estimated, not by me, but an industry expert, everyone would recognize that that process full circle was about a 2-week process. And I know that that includes getting all the way to the point of getting the quote. So the distributors significantly benefit because they're all waiting for design registrations. They need it fast. And if they don't put it in, someone else can actually do it because they're facing the same problem. They actually have their salespeople on the road that have to actually enter that information for the design registration to begin. And then the process starts all over again, just in a different way if you're a distributor. So making it so they can do it in one place, that's it for them. I believe that our manufacturers that we are represented with Sager will get better market share because we're operating faster. We're getting the information, and their people never have to do anything else. So we're going to become their favorite. And so far, all that sounds good to me.
So right now, yeah, go ahead.
The interesting thing about the distributors is that they are completely automated, right? And so from a perspective standpoint, as I was just mentioning, when they want to send information today, they click a button and it generates this NETA form. Comes in as a PDF, Excel spreadsheet, Word document, whatever it is, but it's that standard form. And that then gets emailed again to the rep. And so from the distributor standpoint, they've kind of done their job, or at least they think. But what's preventing that efficiency is now the rep or the manufacturer, because they send it to both, now has to enter that data into their system. And then that has to then be sent or exported out. Or again, the reps have to go into the manufacturers. And so that's another step that they have. And then now it's 3 times as cumbersome because now again, manufacturers back to reps then give it back to the distributors, and the distributors now have to enter in that updated data, whether it be a DR number, a quote, or whatever it is. So by automating that entire process and looking at it from each perspective, if everybody takes part in this automation capabilities, it just streamlines the entire process.
Awesome. So as far as where can they find more information about what Metal is doing, how it's partnered with the ECIA, and what are the next steps if I was a rep manufacturer distributor to start implementing this central hub of information into my system?
Well, I'll take the first part and I'll let you take the second part. So the first part on ECIA, under the standards and I believe it's standards and practices. If you were just to type in a search metal, what you would find is podcasts previously with manufacturers that have actually used it. The president of ECIA talking with, I believe, Peter and myself. And there's a number of resources there. There's the white paper, there's some visuals as far as the flow of documentation or the process of which all the data gets put in. And if there's a plethora of information right on ECIA. The easiest thing to do is just type that in, and you'll find several resources there. And I'll let you handle it.
Yeah, and I would say, metal, as the old saying goes, you never bite off the hand that feeds you, right? And the ECIA has embraced and supported metal since its inception. And we want to continue to provide the current services that we do, through the ECIA's help in marketing, and also generate some new ideas that I think will start to benefit even more the entire ecosystem. And I guess I'll say, stay tuned for that, because we have some pretty interesting stuff coming in.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing you guys at some, and would love to connect up and make sure that everyone continues to improve their processes and make the landscape a better place for everyone.
Porter, thank you so much
Yeah.
for helping us out and hosting this, and it's great to see you. And Alan, thank you.
Sure.
It was great, and appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thank you guys. We'll see you soon.